man, with that particular election, we going door to door, we knocking. Even when my wife ran, one time before, we going door to door, we knocking, we introducing ourselves, and sometimes it's just the popularity that outweighs everything else. But on the flip side, it's knowing who is on the ballot, like
Mm-hmm.
knowing, having those conversations, like this is the district that you live in, so these are the particular people that are going to be on your ballot. Man, I remember it so vividly when I was on running for my school board seat the last go around. I had people that were calling me beforehand, like, "Hey, I'm gonna support you. You got my vote," and I would tell them like, "You are not. I appreciate it, but you are not in my district. You can't vote for me." Then on election day, they'll call upset like, "Man, what's going on? I think y'all need to call the election commissioner because your name not on the ballot." And I had to remind them, like, we just talked like 2 days ago, and I told you, like, I'm not in your district. You can't vote for me. So the most important thing that we can do is know who's on the ballot, but even going beyond that, knowing what those particular candidates stand for. How have they voted in previous elections? What policies have they, been out there in the public eye trying to get pushed? So just kind of knowing like what elections, in what year, to vote for the governor, to vote for your mayor, to vote for the city council, your local legislation, your state representative, knowing exactly who it is, and then just putting your feet to the ground, and doing your own research on what they stand for.
I
And I
love
think
it. I love
on that, I do believe with us, we have so much information at our fingertips, yet we don't utilize it to its full extent. Being proactive, finding out who the candidate is before the election day, making your choice, a conscious decision on who in essence is going to get your vote. I think that's something that we as voters need to take more initiative in doing when it comes to the voting process.
Yeah, and let me throw one more thing out there, Matt. From a community standpoint, I was born and raised in Greenwood, Mississippi. And one thing that I remember about Greenwood is they had the voter league. I was a young boy going to those voter league meetings with my mom, my grandma, and my dad. And in those meetings, you actually had candidates that came in and told about their platform. When my wife ran for a certain clerk in Lamar County, we went to a few events that were very similar to the Voters League. But when we look
it.
around the,
We're not there.
we are not there. We don't have those same type of events today,
We're not there.
like we had growing up, to really allow the community to come out and see who this candidate is, what they stand for, and why I should vote for this particular person. Because a lot of times people vote down
Based on
Democratic
party.
or Republican lines versus
Mm-hmm.
interest. Because you might have an R behind your name and it's thought in the black community, they a Republican, I don't need to vote for them. Or you may have a D behind your name in the black community. You know what? They got my full support. And it shouldn't be like that, because each candidate has their own platform, and we got to dig deep to find out what they stand
I think you fall into the trap when you don't know who to vote for, and you do that. Because I know I've had such a conviction before. They sitting in the poll like, ooh, I
Who is
don't
the
even know who
yeah,
neither one of
yeah,
these.
for. Yep.
So I
right.
guess I'm pick Democrat because that's what all the black folks
Yeah.
will pick. But thinking to myself, I don't know what's this person's agenda for
Hmm.
me. And maybe y'all can help us out with this one too. So we all know that day in November that there's the presidential election. But
Yes.
one of the biggest things that people don't know is the other votes that grow around it. I love Yellow Pain's song where he talks about the Congress and the Senate
Right.
and
Right.
who do what. So if y'all can help us out, LaDonna, with that one, like what other times is it that people should vote, and why are those times so important?
Well, I will tell you this: every election is important, from the president all the way down. And I always give this example. If you have a pothole on your street, are you going to call the president of the United States?
Nope.
You're not. You need as much influence here on the local level, whether it's city, whether it's county, in the districts that we have, just as much as the president. If there is a hole in your street, you need to call your local city councilman. Or if you live out in the county, you need to call your board or supervisor member so they can, get that problem for you. Many people don't realize how our local elections ultimately affect our big elections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love that because I've been a person who's been big on community and haven't had to explain it to people so many times. They be like, hey, well, the mayor ain't doing this, the mayor ain't doing that. Bro, does the whole city have this problem, or does your side of the community have this problem? Because I ain't got no car-sized potholes on my street, So,
and I will say this as well. When it comes to local representation, you have to think about your local senators and your local representatives and things like that. Prime example, a couple of weeks ago, we had the whole issue with the flag. We had our local representation in Jackson voting on to remove the flag or voting on to allow the voters to take care of, to vote on the flag. I actually sent a text message to my state representative member. And I was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I think you should vote to remove the Mississippi state flag. He responded, well, done, I will put that in consideration. And that's it. I make sure that I reach out to our representatives. If they don't know nothing else, they know LaDonna Townsend.
Oh yeah.
And he actually said once before, he was like, LaDonna, sometimes we may not see eye to eye on some things. And in that situation, he was one of the ones who was like, he didn't vote to remove the flag. But I made sure that I let him know as a constituent in his district, hey, this is something that I feel passionate about. And I think that you should, you should vote in my favor.
I think that's the power of your vote has a voice too. And I think one thing people can learn from this is how powerful your voice is just as a voter, because, not only you working in the voting precinct, but we're going to talk about it even in the police and the community talks. Like I told Reggie, knowing who the sheriff is, like people don't know, you vote for that. Exactly. Like in your county, you vote for the sheriff, and that is so important. Because if you don't know who he is, you got to understand, this is the guy that's directing the policing in your city, in your county.
Right.
So whatever stop, freeze, whatever that goes down, he the person who your mayor go to for that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and even like I said, man, Yellow Paint song is so good where it breaks it down. But I've always been a big person to watch the Senate vote. So help us, because one thing that's always been hard and confusing for me was learning what the Senate, the differences in between the Senate and the Congress. And I know Senate kind of comes up, I think, more than Congress, but help us out to know how does that go and what part they play, and how can we even get more information on how we need to vote for them and what they do?
Well, this year, our congressman for this district is Stephen Palazzo. He is a Republican and he is unopposed in November, FYI, just throwing that out there. And his election is every 4 years. We also have, I think it's Roger Wicker. Now his election is every 6 years. And it just varies. It's like a balance of power, and they go to Washington, D.C. Now our local representation, we have local representatives as well. I think inside Hattiesburg, we have, of course, Percy Watson. He's a representative. We have her name is McGee, Miss McGee. I cannot think of her first name. She's local, and they go to Jackson. We have Chris Johnson, Missy McGee. That's her name, Missy McGee. Chris Johnson. He is also one of the local representatives that goes to Jackson. We have Joey Fillingane. He takes up a great portion of Lamar County, and several others here locally. But basically, it's like a balance of power. They go and they basically take care of the state, and they represent our district here in the Forest and Lamar County area.
And then in addition to those people she named, there's actually a seat open right now. It's House District 87. So that particular district spans a little bit of, it's kind of like a border type district between Forest and Lamar County. And that particular seat is going to be on the ballot in November. So there's something that our community needs to know that, because that is a special election seat. So we need to know exactly, like, who's running for that seat right now, right? So that way we can start prepping on either supporting the candidate or working against the highlight player, who's running.
So how can a community reach out to a person like that? Like, what do they need to do to get like these people to come? Because we're going to talk a little bit about voting rallies, but that's just getting people to vote. But like y'all said, we don't have people who come to the community anymore. It's not a big push behind it. What are some of the people, especially from our community, the African American community, the Latino community, all of those of us who are minorities? We're a big subject today. So how and what are some of the things we can do to get those people to come to our community to do events, to speak? I mean, they're getting the money donated to do it. So that's one big thing. So
I will say this: whenever you're qualified to run as a candidate in any election, your information automatically becomes public. So, as any type of event coordinator, they can reach out to that person via, Facebook, email, to their office, all that information via postal mail. That information is made readily available once that candidate qualifies. And it's just up to that event coordinator to reach out to that candidate. Let them know about your event. The candidate, can decide if they're going to accept an invitation or if they're going to send a representative, or different things like that, and so they can just, be made aware of the event that's coming along.
And I'll say this too, Matt. This year may be a little bit weird, but in the past, when we've gone to public events like Hub Fest, the Mobile Street Festival, we've seen people who are running for various seats, right? And in that's the perfect time to sit down and just talk to that particular person to figure out what their platform is. Take advantage of while they are face to face versus that person may not have the availability to always come to where you are. So if you are there and that person's in the room, take a second to ask that person, tell me about yourself. Tell me why
right.
I should vote for you and what you stand for.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now let's get into some of the voting facts about people who can vote. And I know one of the biggest questions, and we've talked about this a little bit before in our pre-talk. What are some of the things that can stop a person from voting because they do not know what from 2000 and probably 8 or 7 to now, the roughness that people had with all of the voting laws being changed, like in the video. So in today's time, what can stop a person from being able to walk in a poll and vote?
I always encourage voters to be proactive. If you are a citizen of Mississippi and you live in whatever county you live in, you need to register to vote 30 days before the election. That is to ensure that you are a registered voter. If you have always lived there, if you've moved across the street, if you had any type of change to your information all anywhere, update your information. If you moved across the street, update your information, because even that small change will affect your registration. I will say this: Mississippi does have 22 crimes that will disenfranchise your vote. And I think that's important because a lot of people think, oh well, I got a traffic ticket, my license suspended, I got child support. They think that those things will deter them from voting, and